When the big balloon is leaking and the ocean is full of sharks, you don't jump in. You build a raft. You build a raft that floats. I want you to imagine for a minute that you're blowing up a giant balloon. Now, most people think you can keep adding air and it will just keep getting bigger. And it does for a while. But what if I told you that the balloon has a tiny hole in it? And what that really means is that every breath you add makes the hole leak faster. And one day, that balloon will just burst. Now, that balloon is our country's debt. And today, we're going to talk about why it's leaking and what it means to you and how you can build your own raft to stay afloat. Notice how it's filled with gold coins? Last week, the U.S. government's borrowing binge began with $100 billion in a single 4-week bill auction. But it also sold $58 billion of 3-year notes, $42 billion of 10-year notes, and $25 billion of 30-year bonds. That's $125 billion of new debt in just 1 week. And they're not even marginally done yet. And all of these, there are signs of trouble in the bond market. Even big investors, they're wobbling. And when the 30-year auction closed on August 7th, yields jumped to over 4.8%, the highest since 2007, as the financial crisis was unfolding. The so-called tail was 2.1 basis points, the widest since last August. Remember what was happening in the markets. Fewer banks, foreign funds showed up, and the bid to cover ratio dropped to 2.266. All of that gobbledygook means that this was the lowest since November of 2023. These markets are being tested, these debt markets. It's a repeat of weak demand. Actually, you could even call it a three-peat of weak demand, echoing May's sell-off. It's as if fewer people want a ticket on the roller coaster that's, frankly, climbing way too high. And I loved this one when I saw it. 2 former Treasury chiefs from the 2008 crisis just spoke up. And I remember them well. Maybe you do too, as we were going through this crisis. Hank Paulson said our borrowing path is unsustainable. Oh my goodness. Weren't those the guys that really kind of kicked this whole massive QE spree, I should call it, off? But hey, Timothy Geithner noted yields are modest now, but only because people still trust the system. He actually warned that we must balance revenues and spending and keep the Fed truly independent. Or what's going to happen? Oh yeah, confidence will fade. And let me tell you, you think 2008 actually tested people's confidence? Because it evaporated 24 hours, bam. So you can see even our own leaders, well, some of them anyway, worry that the balloon is stretching way too thin. Meanwhile, trade tensions add even more stress. The on and off again tariffs on gold, on Swiss gold exports, well, strained the world's gold market, didn't it? And also revealed something very interesting. So if you haven't seen the live, you need to go watch the live, because that's exactly what we talked about. Trump's sudden 50% tariffs on Indian imports, well, that shattered trust with a once friendly partner, and we worked really hard to get to this point. And China, well, they've sided with India, and it's a great way for China to get in there as we are watching the alliance lines shift. And what did China do? Oh, those tariffs are unfair. See, we're awesome. These shocks can rattle global confidence in the U.S. debt and in our dollar balloon. So who's going to buy that debt? Because with demand slipping, you got to ask that question. Who's going to snap all this new debt up? Well, central banks might refuse, as we're seeing in China and Japan, the two largest buyers of Treasury debt. Well, they started reducing their positions in what they're holding and what they're buying back in 2013. So this is not any new news. And what do we have? We have a dollar that is seeking a new artificial market. But our bidder of last resort, even the dealers, they're pulling back. But they're picking up the slack in 401ks and retirement plans in the public. We are passing this risk on to the public. And when the auctions, and if the auctions fail, the Federal Reserve, remember how they've paused and allowed their balance sheet to run off? Well, they might just have to start buying treasuries again. And that's like blowing more air into the balloon just to keep it from falling. But it makes the leak worse. And what are central bankers doing? Well, goodness gracious, they are turning to gold. And they have been since 2005. Amid all this, central banks bought 22 tons of gold in June. 3 months in a row, that net purchases higher and higher and higher. What do you think? You think they might know something you don't? Because gold is their lifeboat. And when paper money not just leaks, but actually pops, what is going to be your lifeboat? Because we know that gold doesn't rust or tarnish. It's indestructible, and it holds value across not just moments, but centuries and over 4,800 currency crisis. When the big balloon is leaking and the ocean is full of sharks, you don't jump in. You build a raft. You build a raft that floats, that helps you. And that's what we do at Zang Enterprises with our sound money strategy. And it's built in layers. You need barterability to protect your current standard of living. You also need to protect whatever fiat money wealth you've managed to accumulate and make sure that your debt bubble doesn't burst on you, but that you have the ability to pay it off. And my goodness, even get into a position to take advantage of the flip-flop that's going to come in valuations. I mean, this is not rocket science. This is just history. And we also need to build that community resilience, local networks to create that surety in food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter. Because money means little if you can't eat. It doesn't matter. I have a $10 trillion Zimbabwe note and I can buy nothing with it. Diversification, that is the key. If you're going to hold any of those stocks and cryptos, and I'm telling you, I do believe we have entered the melt-up phase, and this is a very dangerous phase because it's designed to keep you in these markets so that when that hyperinflation event occurs and that overnight reset occurs, you're locked in. You don't have your lifeboat because there isn't one unless you've laid in your sound money strategy. It's simple. Gold is undervalued. Digital assets, well, they're inflated because they've got to catch those eyeballs and they've got to catch adoption. And it should be pretty darn clear that they are pushing us into adoption. Of course, they want it to be your idea and not theirs. They don't want you to realize it's really their ideas. But come on. Remember, that giant balloon with a hole? Most people think that it's the only ride in town because that's what Wall Street and the banks and the government wants you to think. But what if I told you there's a better way? And what that really means is you don't have to keep inflating the broken balloon. Because guess what? No matter how much air you blow into it, it's never enough, and that is by design. You can build a fleet of rafts, layer by layer by layer, using gold and silver, community, and smart diversification. So learn the truth about our debt balloon and why it's leaking. Education. Secure real wealth with a sound money strategy. Using gold and silver like the central banks do. Well, they use the gold as that secure boat and an anchor. Strengthen your community. Grow food. Share skills. Trade locally. Become a locavore. Help your local community become part of it. And diversify wisely. Balance whatever fiat money wealth you want to hold, like your stocks and the crypto, so you're not trapped in dollars, because that's what you can convert that stuff into. And get in now. Gold's price is certainly on the spot market. It will rise as confidence in paper money falls. Rapid inflation, that's the key and the ticket to lose the rest of that itty-bitty level of confidence that's still there. Because most people are living on hopium. They hope that things are getting back to normal. They're hoping that inflation is not going to get worse. They're hoping that cryptocurrencies will save them. Well, let's do more than hopium, because together we can build your raft, my raft, our raft. We can be free, prepared, and truly resilient. And when that big balloon finally bursts, you won't drift at sea. You'll already have a solid vessel carrying you to much safer and grander shores. And I know if we do this on a global level, we get sound money, redeemable gold back in the system again. That boat is rock solid because the public will have taken its power back. One person can't do it alone, but together we can do anything. And so if you found this valuable, make sure that you hit that like button, leave a comment, let's have a conversation. Come to the lives that we do every Tuesday, ask any question at all. Become part of this community. And let's create a sound vessel, a sound foundation to build on. And until next we meet, please be safe out there. Bye-bye.